But I'm going to tell you this, we ain't done yet.
Howdy and welcome back to the Ineligibles podcast. I'm Will Stone, he's Chase Caldwell, and today we're going to start our preview of the 2021 Fighting Texas Aggie football team. But first we wanted to give you a brief episode on our overall thoughts of the roster before we got into our position by position breakdowns. We're going to start with quarterback after this episode, but from the get-go here, Chase, I guess tell us your feelings on this A&M roster, like from a bird's eye view.
Well, from a bird's eye view, it looks pretty salty. My favorite thing about this, and I know this is why you're asking me, is just how complete the roster is. You know, if you look at every position, there's good depth at every position, but then there's also some really good superstar type players, some really extremely good talent that, in years past we would have been uber excited about. We would have been just over the moon that we have this one player, but now we have that one player, but if they're not on the field, that's okay, and that's where we have that depth, but it's at every position. And so, I kind of, looking at years past, there was plenty of years where we had big question marks at big time positions, mainly because we had no depth and we had no superstar players, and for years and years that was on defense. There was always that question of, is our defense going to step up to the plate this year? Are they going to be better than what they were last year? And I think part of that has to do, and we talked about this in our second episode that we did, about just the difference in terms of the high-flying offenses versus a slow, methodic offense. And there's some to that. But when you look at, I'm a big numbers guy, and I love looking at the numbers of recruiting. And you know this because I always text you notes apps on my phone whenever I start deciding, like, oh, I'm gonna add all these things together, and I really like to dig into the 85 rule and like where do we have talent and all that. But when I compare it to older classes, we talked before about the blue chip ratio and where you want to have a certain amount of 4 and 5 star players. We mentioned that some of those Sumlin teams got above 50%, but when you looked at where those 50% landed, a lot of them were at the same positions. We had 2 5-star quarterbacks at the same time, and Kyle Allen and Kyler Murray, once upon a time. So that's great. We have these 5-star quarterbacks, but you can only put one of them on the field, and so that's a big contrast to having a 5-star cornerback and a 5-star defensive end and a 5-star quarterback and a 5-star receiver and a 5-star tight end. So whenever you start looking at it like that, man, it gets really exciting. It really, really exciting.
Yeah, absolutely. I think your first point about the balance, it's absolutely true. I wrote down in my notes here that this has got to be the best A&M roster that I've seen in my lifetime, and it's not because like one unit is elite, which I think the defense could be elite, but the 2012 team probably had a better offense than what we're going to see this fall. Maybe the 1998 team when they won the Big 12, maybe that team had a better defense than we'll see this fall, but no team has had like both sides as good as this team is going to be. And I think you're spot on with the depth. There's a good mix of young star-studded players as well as some veterans who've been around for a long time. And I think, and you're going to see it all over college football this season, like the COVID year. Everyone got a free year of eligibility if you played or not last year. So you see a lot of teams having fifth-year guys come back, sixth-year guys come back. Aaron Hansford came back. He was in the 2016 recruiting class. Like, he should normally be long gone by now. And I think it helps out A&M more than most teams. And I think it's because we talked about Jimbo's first class being here. It was the first year that they had an early signing day. And he still signed a good class, but the numbers are coming out on those first-year head coaching classes, with the early signing day instituted, and the attrition rates are much higher than normal. And that's evident with A&M as well. Like that 2018 class, very few of those guys are still here. A few of them turned into good players like Bobby Brown, but he's since left for the NFL. So if we didn't get those COVID guys back, especially on defense, like Miles Jones, Jaden Peavy, Aaron Hansford, even a guy like Keldrick Harper, to provide some good depth at safety, I think it's going to make a world of difference and definitely raises my expectations for the team.
Yeah, and something you didn't mention there is this is also partly a benefit of us ending up fifth last year. I can't speak to that for sure. I don't text the players and be like, hey, are you staying back because, you're mad that you didn't get in the national championship? But you got to think, that plays a little bit of a part in it. And there was also a lot of question marks, of course, because of COVID and how that was going to affect the draft. But I mean, I'm excited because I felt like there was at least some seniors or maybe juniors that would have normally declared early that felt like they ought to come back. It could be pseudoscience, I don't know, but it at least it seems like a remarkable point, right? But yeah, I'm a big defensive guy. You know that. I love defense, and oh my gosh, do we have a good defense? And I was a defensive back manager back whenever I was an equipment manager, and so that was back in the days where everybody was like, oh, we can't defend the wheel route and whatever. But what I look at is in my time whenever I was there. And there's plenty of great players that were there whenever I was, like Dono and Armani and everybody, Devontae Harris, great players. But if we had the defensive backs that we have on this team, everybody would be over the moon back then. They would be so excited because of the talent that we have there. I mean, Miles Jones is one of the best cover men that I've ever seen. He is fantastic. Of course, I have a soft spot in my heart for Damani. He Waxahachie boy. But I say that to say, on any other team that I've ever seen, we would love to have these DBs that we have here. And that being said, I think that's the biggest question mark at defense. That's pretty insane. This is
as good as those guys are.
I mean, it's they're really, really, really good, and that might be the biggest question mark. Could argue linebackers, and we'll get into that as we get into the different position groups. But this defense, I'm excited. This is wrecking crew all over it, in my opinion, which is just, I'm excited about it. Yeah.
I think one point I want to drive home here is the true depth of this defense. You have guys like, I've forgotten Michael Clemens earlier. He's a 6-year guy, or maybe a 7th-year guy. He's been around for forever. He's back for another year at defensive end. You have a 4th-year guy in Tyree Johnson at end. You have a future first-round draft pick at end in DeMarvin Leal. Guys like Shamar Turner coming in, who may see some early playing time. And with the defensive backs, like obviously Jones and Jones, Miles and Jalen at corner, Antonio Johnson, he's fantastic. You have probably 3 or 4 safeties you feel good about. The freshman corners look good in the spring. And that's, I guess my last point on the defense, or really on the team as a whole, is, in the past you have, highly touted 5-star players coming in, which we definitely do in the class that got here this spring, and we'll has gotten here this summer. You typically expect maybe a few of those to contribute or even start as true freshmen. I don't know if we see that this year. There's so many guys that are entrenched, and there's so much competition already. Like, I can see some guys getting some playing time, but there's nobody where we're like, oh, we have to have so-and-so be a starter because we don't have anybody else. Like, there's already talent at every spot.
Yeah, and I saw plenty of super uber talented 5-star guys come into the program whenever I was there, and there was this dramatic difference between how great they were and the other players were still very good, but it was like, holy cow, this guy is fantastic. But I think that you have a little bit of less of a drop off nowadays than what I've seen, and that's not to pick on anybody that was there whenever I was there, because again, you were a college athlete and I was not. But it's just to say, like, the depth there is just tremendous and just fantastic. Offense, the biggest thing that I see there is we have this plethora of talent over there too. It's just unproven. There's a lot of just young talent over there, but I mean, Devon Achane is one of my favorite. Well, how do you say his name? Achane now? Is that
Achane, yeah.
What we figured out? Yeah, I keep getting him backwards. But I say that he's the number one recruit I've ever been like super excited about, and
he's the fastest man in college football.
You remember when he committed to us in Georgia? At like midnight, and you and I were just like jumping for joy.
Us and Trey Parker.
Yeah. He just something about him. I was like, man, he's gonna be a fantastic player.
And then you have like all the players from the 2019 class. Kenyon Green, future first round offensive lineman. Jalen Weidermeyer, Isaiah Spiller. Anaya Smith. I mean, like, and then you finally get guys healthy like Caleb Chapman. Hopefully, we expect Baylor Cup to be healthy, and that's not even including the guys coming back like Hez Jones and Chase Lane at receiver. And then you have quarterback. Like, that's what we're going to talk about later today. But that's exciting.
Oh, for sure. And it's just. We've got a lot to talk about at every position. There's not a position that we're just going to sit there and talk about how terrible things are going to be or how worried we are about it, because there's big playmakers everywhere, and I don't know. I can't wait to jump into it. Quarterbacks, of course, it's the main character, and that's what we're going to talk about first. But as much as I am super excited to talk about quarterbacks, there's other positions that I just cannot wait to get into, and so it's a very, very thrilling time, a really, really good roster, one that I'm just incredibly excited about. And Aggies they probably won't admit to this maybe, but for years and years, I've heard people try to make the case for like a 3-star player and like, oh, well, maybe he was, Johnny was a 3-star player and yada, yada. And we've always tried to make excuses as to why we only had 1 5-star or 2 5-stars in a class, and it's like, well, yeah, but we got all these 3-stars and they're underrated and they're underrated and they're underrated. Well, rest assured, guys, Jimbo finds at least 1 3-star every year that is just completely and totally underrated. I mean, just look at the list. I mean, look at Anaya Smith. Whenever he committed, like, everybody was like, for some reason, questioning, like, did we know he was going to commit? I think we had like 1 scholarship left, and so everybody was like in a panic about it, like thought that he just like committed on his own or whatever. And no, that was Jimbo's guy, right out of the gate. And look at him. I mean, just look at him.
Just look at him.
But he just Jimbo Aggies can find you that 3-star that you've been talking to people about for years and years about, like, well, such and such was a 3-star athlete, but he intersperses them with 4 and 5 stars that will continue to carry the mantle. So you're no longer making excuses as to why we took these 3 stars. You're taking 1 or 2 3 stars and sprinkling them amongst some incredible blue chip players. And so I hope y'all are as excited as we are to dig into each one of these different position groups, because I am way, way excited.
Yeah, and to your point, if a 4-star doesn't pan out, there's another 4-star, 5-star in the waiting, just waiting to take his place. So
yeah,
there's a ton of competition.
You got to have those on those big jobs.
Oh yeah, and this is a big job. So
yeah, big job.
A ton of competition, a ton of stuff to get into, and over the next, we'll see how it goes. Maybe 6, 7, 8 weeks. We're going to break down each position group on this A&M roster, and everyone wants to hear about the quarterbacks. That's the most high-profile position, and we have a competition on our hands, which is always exciting. So we're going to record that next, and hope you join us over there. So thanks for listening, and go check out our quarterback episode.